Good evening, here's top news newsletter starting with headlines. Syrian army kills injures score of terrorists. Iraqi Prime Minister in Salahuddin to inspect the military operations. Kerry and Lavrov in Geneva to discuss Ukrainian crisis. Netanyahu in Washington to stop Iran deal. Units of the Syrian army destroyed 2 hideouts of Jabhat al-Nusra terrorists at the surrounding of Hadiqat al-Mukhayyam and the south of the Engineers Syndicate in Dar'a al-Mahatta. The units also destroyed other dens and vehicles with all terrorists inside them in the countryside of the southern province of Dar'a. Army units killed many members of Takfiri terrorist organization in Al-Rajan, al-Mayal, Kafr Zita in the countryside of the central province of Hama, while in Homs, army killed many terrorists and destroyed their vehicles in Talbise, Jazal and Adala in the countryside of the province. On other side, authorities in the countryside of Homs province foiled terrorist attempt to plow an explosive devices they had earlier planted in the eastern Palmyra city in the countryside. Authorities found 10 explosive devices planted inside water channels and under bridges in the area, a source in the province which is located in central Syria. Terrorists from so-called ISIS are active in Palmyra, eastern countryside, and have been taking over oil and gas wells and smuggling and selling stolen fuel outside the country in violation of the Security Council resolution on 2199, which prohibits buying oil from terrorist groups. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry began talks in Geneva on Monday, discussing the conflict in eastern Ukraine. The atmosphere was tense before talks, and no statements were made. Kerry is also expected to raise issues about the investigation into the assassination of Russian opposition politician Boris Nemtsov. While in America, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrived in Washington on Sunday for a historic quest to stop an international nuclear deal with Iran sought by the United States. Netanyahu's controversial 48-hour visit has discarded the U.S. President Barack Obama and brought bilateral relations to their lowest point in years. A speech before lawmakers by the Israeli leader aims to drum up last-minute support to hold a possible war deal with Iran over its nuclear program. It has infuriated the White House and prominent Democrats because the speech was set up by congressional Republicans without consulting the president, violating usual protocol. Several leading members of America's political establishment have announced they plan to skip the address to joint session of the U.S. Congress. No meetings have been set up between Netanyahu and U.S. government officials during his visit. In Iraqi view, the General Commander of the Iraqi Armed Forces, Prime Minister Haidar al-Abadi, has arrived in Samarra district of Salahuddin province to inspect the military operations against so-called militants on ground. Iraqi News reported, in this context, the Iraqi army and the popular mobilization troops announced completing the readiness to liberate the northern city of Tikrit from ISIS. A first Iranian flight landed in Sana'a on Sunday, a day before Yemeni officials signed an aviation agreement with Tehran. The Mahan airplane arrived in Sana'a carrying a team from the Iranian Red Crescent and medical aid. Senior Iranian diplomats were on hand to welcome the flight, the first between the two countries in many years. Yemen's official Saba news agency said that under the Iran deal, Mahan Air and Yemeni would operate 14 flights each week. That was all for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Nibal Hnaidi. Good night.